Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine on the 27th of August of 2025. Today we have lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about the Zaporizhzhia direction, where both the Russians and the Ukrainians are trying to improve their positions, most likely before the beginning of another round of Russian offensive operation. The neutral mappers reported that as a result of counterattack, the Ukrainians managed to establish complete control over the village by the name of Stepova. The Russians were forced to fall back. This is very important village when talking about the logistic between the settlements of Mali Sherbaki and the mainland. So as you can see, as a result of this counterattack, the Ukrainians managed to cut physically the road TO-812, and now the Russians in Mali Sherbaki and Sherbaki currently have problems with logistic. So I believe that due to this situation, in coming days, the Ukrainians may try to counterattack in the area of Mali Sherbaki and Sherbaki with the purpose to restore complete control over this territory. This may be a very powerful media victory of the armed forces of Ukraine. At the same time, the Russians published very interesting video from the settlement of Novotroitskaya. In this video, we can see how the Russians, as a result of reconnaissance operation, managed to discover the concentration of units of the 65th Separate Mechanized Brigade. And as a result of number of strikes with drones and missiles, the entire concentration of forces, including temporary deployment points of FPV drone operators, were completely destroyed. So lots of drones, as you can see, the Russians used. And you know that these FPV drone operators of F-65th Brigade is very powerful unit of the armed forces of Ukraine. If you don't know who is the FPV drone operators of the 65th Mechanized Brigade of the armed forces of Ukraine, I would like to remind you, for these purposes we just need to increase the numbers of updates since the beginning of August, and if you remember, during August, this 65th Brigade attacked probably several times the railways between the settlements of Melitopol and Tokmak. So let's take a look at this video once again. In this video we can see how Ukrainians of Ronin squad, this is FPV drone squad of the 65th Mechanized Brigade, destroyed and damaged several trains that were moving and that were redeploying fuel for the armed forces of the Russian Federation from the mainland in the direction of the Zaporizhzhia direction. As a result of those attacks, as a result of those special operations, the Russians suffered huge losses. Lots of fuel they lost, lots of trains were damaged and destroyed, and the entire, let's say, railways were blocked due to the situation. So this is exactly what did this FPV drone group of 65th Mechanized Brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. And today we got report that the Russians managed to discover the temporary deployment point and the main base of this 65th Brigade of this FPV drone squad. And as a result of these attacks, as you can see, the Ukrainians suffered huge losses. And furthermore, this attack can be connected just as a revenge for the previous attacks of this 65th Brigade, or the Russians are planning another wave of offensive operation, and to start another wave of offensive, first of all, the Russians understand it's good to destroy FPV drone operators, and most likely this is exactly what is happening right now. I would like to remind you that during the previous days, according to different sources and according to geolocations, the Russians managed to improve their position significantly in the city of Stepnogorsk, and most likely it's time to begin another wave of offensive operation, and now the Ukrainians are without FPV drone operators, or at least their FPV drone operators groups is not so powerful as it used to be even a week ago. We believe that coming days we're going to see lots of interesting updates exactly from the central and the western Zaporizhzhia direction, from the territory between the cities of Stepnogorsk and the city of Orekhov. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation to the east and in the eastern Zaporizhzhia direction, where the Russians continue their offensive operation. The Russians are using broad front line attack. The Russians are moving along very long front line. The length of Russian offensive operation is around 33 kilometers. Currently, lots of clashes and some changes on the ground were recorded between the villages of Olgovskaya and Timirovka. Some changes on the ground were provided by neutral mappers and pro-Ukrainian resources. This is the situation on the ground by the end of 26th of August. This is the situation by the end of the 27th of August. In the area of the settlement of Timirivka, another offensive operation carried out by the Russian forces was recorded. Russians used turtle tank with infantry on board. Ukrainians used probably tens of drones with the purpose to stop the Russians, but these drones didn't stop the Russian tank at all. The Russian tank stopped when it needed, and infantry landed in the area of this dense network network of the fortifications. So we see that the Russians continue their concentration process in the area of Timirovka, most likely with the purpose to continue offensive operation further, first in the direction of Obratne and then further in the western direction towards the settlement of Nova Ivanovka. Furthermore, the Russians continue their offensive operation in the area of Kamyshevacha. We believe that in coming days, the group of forces east will report Russian complete control over the territory of the settlement, and this entire pocket would be colored in Russian favor. There are very heavy clashes in this area. The Russians continue offensive, and as we discussed, the main purpose of the Russians is to cut R85 road between the cities of Pokrovsk and Gulay-Pole. This will allow the Russians to break through the entire Zaporizhzhia defense and to move further in the direction of the river of Dnipro itself. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the most important direction, the city of Pokrovsk. During the previous 24 hours, the changes on the ground were recorded in the western flank, in the city of Pokrovsk itself, and in the northeastern flank as well. So let's start from the beginning and let's discuss everything in details. Today, pro-Ukrainian resources reported about another breakthrough of Ukrainian defense, and most likely Ukrainians were talking about the western flank. So what is happening here right now? First, let's talk about changes on the ground. According to pro-Ukrainian mappers, as a result of offensive operation, the Russians managed to turn the situation in their favor in the battle of the settlement by the name of Kotleva. The Russians managed to take the southern and the central part of the village completely, and now the clashes are taking place for the northern part. This is according to pro-Ukrainian resources. According to pro-Russian resources, the village of Kotlina was taken by the Russians a long time ago. As for the village of Udachne, during the previous 24 hours, several changes were recorded. During the morning, the pro-Russian resources published this video, where we can see how the armored forces of the Russian Federation were bombing and attacking the northwestern part of the city of Udachne. Lots of FPV drone attacks were recorded exactly in this part of the settlement. Based on this video, in the morning we thought that the northwestern part of Udachne is under control of the armored forces of the Russian Federation. Later, pro-Ukrainian resources published video also from the northwestern part of the village, where we can see Ukraine attacks on Russian positions. Based on this video, we made small changes on the ground in this area. And telling the truth, right before we started making this video, several pro-Russian resources reported that as a result of clashes, by the end of the 27th of August of 2025, the armored forces of the Russian Federation managed to establish complete control over the settlement by the name of Udachne. So most likely the pro-Ukrainian resources, when they were talking about another breakthrough, first of all, they were talking about Russian control over the settlement of Udachne. Another important detail that was provided by pro-Russian resources. So we are talking about this map, and according to several very reliable pro-Russian resources, as a result of offensive operation, as a result of special operation carried out by the sabotage and reconnaissance group of the armored forces of the Russian Federation, the Russian DRG managed to break through Ukrainian defense in the vicinity of the Pokrovskaya mine and to encircle this mine from the north and to cut this mine from supplying support. So the Russians are saying that as a result of special operation, they managed to establish a very powerful and strong foothold to the north of the city of Udachne and to the northwest of the Pokrovskaya mine, which is the strategical defense object of the armored forces of Ukraine. And we see that from this configuration of the map, Ukrainians in this area were caught in cauldron by the Russians without any chances for evacuation. Probably the Ukrainians have chances for evacuation, but they need to do this during this coming night. Otherwise, they need to carry out counter-offensive operation in the direction of this foothold with the purpose to force the Russians to fall back. And we understand that most likely the Russians will not be able to hold these three lines for a very long period of time. So that is why we expect that starting of this coming night between the 27th and the 28th of August of 2025, due to the situation in the settlement of Udachne, the Russians will begin fast-lining attack in the direction of Pokrovskaya mine with the purpose to take this territory under complete control. If Russians are able to establish complete control over the territory between the settlements of Kotlina, the Pokrovskaya mine, the settlement of Udachne, and so on, so everything along this red line, this is going to be the beginning of complete collapse, of complete and total collapse of the entire Pokrovsk agglomeration. Because from positions on the territory of Pokrovskaya mine, the armored forces of the Russian Federation will be able to establish complete FPV drone control over the main supply line that connects the city of Pokrovsk and the Pokrovsk agglomeration with the mainland. We're talking about M30 road. The distance to this road would be just less than 7 kilometers, more precisely 6 kilometers and 320 meters. And obviously this road and M30 will be turned into another kill zone that was created by the armored force of the Russian Federation. Nothing that use this road will be able to get the city of Pokrovsk or to escape the Pokrovsk cauldron. Furthermore, from the same positions, the distance to another road through the settlement of Grushina from the territory of mine would be less than 10 kilometers, which means that the losses of the armored forces of Ukraine using this road would be around 60 or 70%. Everything, almost every second equipment, every single soldier that used this road in the future will be attacked and destroyed by the armored forces of the Russian Federation using FPV drones. So we are entering the critical and decisive phase of the battle of the city of Pokrovsk, and this decisive part is taking place not in the northeastern flank in the area of Rodinska or area of recent breakthrough or in direction of Shakhovo pocket. The decisive battle is taking place between the settlements of Udachna and Sergeyevka. If Russians are able to break through this area, then we can start counting days for the entire Pokrovsk agglomeration. Furthermore, the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation during the previous report reported that as a result of clashes, the group of forces center managed to establish complete control over the settlement by the name of Pervomaya. The Ukrainians call this settlement not as Pervomaya but the settlement of Leontovichi. Based on the report of the Minister of Defense, we adjusted the map, this part of the Pokrovsk agglomeration, in Russian favor. Furthermore, I would like to remind you that during the previous 24 hours, we got another video from the southern part of the city of Pokrovsk where we can see how Ukrainians of 155th Mechanized Brigade were counterattacking Russian positions in the southern part of the city with tank. When talking about this video, I would like to point your attention on several things. First of all, the tank. The tank, as you can see, we have just one part, this gun of the tank we can see, but obviously when talking about this gun, it seems that the tank was completely fresh, just new, maybe just left the service center of the armored forces of Ukraine or just left some repairing center. So the tank is new and we can see this according to this video. We discussed this video during the previous video, and according to this, let's say, scenes, we adjusted the southern part of the city of Pokrovsk. We have watched this video for the second time in a row because another important episode was published today connected with this tank. So once again, first Ukrainians of the 155th Brigade sent a tank in the southern part to counterattack. Then Ukrainians with this tank were trying to escape the southern part of the city of Pokrovsk towards the northern part with the purpose to save the tank and not to be hit by the Russians. But as you can see, during the previous 24 hours, another video was published, this time by the Russian sources, and here we can see this tank that was working in the southern part of the city of Pokrovsk. The tank had almost reached the central part of the city, but he haven't managed to cross the railways because Russians with 4 FPV drones attacked this tank and the tank was destroyed. So this is this topic, this video gives us insights about several things. The first one is that the tank that was counterattacking the southern part 3 minutes later was destroyed in the central part of the city of Pokrovsk. And the second important thing that this video shows us is that the Russians establish complete kill zone in the southern part of the city. So this tank is not just a video, and the destruction of this tank is not just a video. This is the demonstration of a kill zone, of another kill zone that we were talking about yesterday. Nothing can answer the city of Pokrovsk without being damaged by the Russian forces, and nothing can survive in the southern part of the city of Pokrovsk if it enters open space like this tank. Another important video also came from the southeastern part of the city. In this video we can see how the Russians attack another temporary deployment point of the 155th Mechanized Brigade of the Armored Forces of Ukraine with FABs. So as you can see, we have 3 episodes connected with 155th Brigade that happened in the southern part of the city. The first video shown us destroyed tank, another video shown us the temporary deployment point that was destroyed, and it seems that currently Currently, the 155th Brigade was sent in the southern part of the city of Pokrovsk for the stabilization, but we see that this brigade suffered huge losses during the previous 24 hours, according to different videos. And if things continues developing the same way, obviously we can say that in coming days, the 155th Brigade of the Armored Forces of Ukraine will lose its combat capabilities and will require for replacement. And if it happens, of course, the most important question, whether the Ukrainians have forces to replace this 155th Brigade in the southern part of Pokrovsk. If they don't have additional forces to do this, then we should expect that in coming days the Russians may break through the entire southern part of the city and to take under complete control everything almost until the railways. And due to loss of capabilities of several brigades who are working and operating in this direction. Now let's move further. As for the northeastern part, during the previous 24 hours, several changes were recorded in the northeastern part of the settlement of Rodinska. According to neutral mappers, the Russians improved their positions in this part, and according to the same neutral mappers, the Russians improved their positions around the Shakhovo pocket. The Russians continued the tightening of the noose around the settlement, but as for the settlement itself, there are still very heavy clashes. The situation around the Shakhovo pocket, as for me, reminds me the situation that developed around the settlement of Uspienovka during the battle for Kurakhova. The Russians also created a pocket, and at some point the defense of the armored forces of Ukraine was broken. The Russians created several pockets of resistance of the armored forces of Ukraine that were eliminated one by one. I believe that the same situation is going to take place in the area of Shakhova. As soon as the Russians enter the settlement of Sofievka from the east, and as soon as the front line takes this configuration, we're going to see complete collapse of Ukrainian defense in this direction with huge losses from the Ukrainian side. As for the Konstantinovka direction, during the previous 24 hours, nothing special was recorded. The same story about the Sivers direction. Just regular clashes, regular activities. The Russians are hunting and destroying Ukraine FPV drones that created a kill zone for the armored forces of the Russian Federation between the cities of Siversk and Verkhny Kamensk. So now the Russians during the previous months, the Russians destroyed lots of positions and equipment of the armored forces of Ukraine in this area, especially FPV drone operators, which means that in coming days, the defense of the armed forces of Ukraine, the kill zone of the armed forces of Ukraine in this area, could be destroyed by the Russians, which will allow the Russians to break through significantly in the direction of the cities of Siversk and the cities of Yampol, or between these two settlements. Because with this offensive operation, most likely in coming days, we're going to see another breakthrough, this time in the Liman direction. During the previous 24 hours, several pro-Russian, very reliable resources reported that the armored forces of the Russian Federation managed to improve their position significantly to the south of the settlement of Kolodzy. As you can see, once again, this information was confirmed by pro-Russian resources and by pro-Ukrainian resources. This Russian breakthrough can lead to Russian offensive operation or fast lightning attack towards the settlement of Stavki from the east and towards the village of Zaporizhzhia from the northwest. If Russians are able to carry out both offensive operations, this can lead to complete collapse of Ukrainian defense in this area, and this will lead to the beginning of the battle of the city of Liman itself. As for the settlement of Zaporizhzhia, pro-Ukrainian resources adjusted their maps as well, and as you can see, according to these corrections, the 80% of the settlement of Zaporizhzhia either under complete control of the armored forces of the Russian Federation or marked as a contested area, which means that the battle for the village is coming to a logical end. During the previous 24 hours, we had changes on the ground, as you can see. Some of them, once again, were provided by pro-Ukrainian resources, and some of them were confirmed by geolocations provided by 63rd Brigade of the Armored Forces of Ukraine, which is responsible for defense of the settlement. In this video, we can see lots of episodes how Russian soldiers were moving through the village of Tarskoy in its eastern part, and how units of 63rd Mechanized Brigade were attacking them. Based on this video, we colored the map. So we see that the Russians are about to begin another very powerful and major offensive operation between the cities of Liman, Siversk, The situation is critical in the area of Konstantinovka. We see another breakthrough to the west of the city of Pokrovsk. The Russians continue their unstoppable Zaporizhzhia eastern offensive operation. The Russians are preparing themselves before the beginning of another major offensive in the area of the city of Zaporizhzhia. And don't forget about another kill zone to the northwest of the city of Kherson, where Ukrainians continue suffering losses using M14 road for supply and support. It seems that the entire front line, entire defense line of the armored forces of Ukraine suffers huge problems from the Russian side. And it seems that these processes cannot be probably returned back to the situation of at least 2022 or 2023. It seems that everything is coming to its logical end. And that's it for today. Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.